Hi there, good afternoon. Today is Monday, March 9th, 2026. So the first thing that I'm going to say here is that after filming this video, I'm going to get out there and show you more of Mahalabalapuram, this really nice seaside town in South India on the east coast, which looks very peaceful and pleasant, and there is much to see around here beyond just being this nice little mellow town. There's some incredibly impressive temples and other things to see. So after this video, I will be getting back to my much more regular travel content. But I wanted to film this one partly just to kind of get it done, get the thoughts out of my head after what I experienced, as most of you know, having gotten caught up in the war in Iran. Obviously, you know, I was on the fringes, so to speak, getting stuck in Doha, Qatar, where missiles were raining down. However, they were all getting, or 98% were getting shot down by the missile defense system. But it was still obviously a very harrowing experience getting out of there. The Doha airport still has not opened, so if I hadn't taken action, I would have been stuck sitting there for the past number of days with missiles still being targeted at Qatar, and who knows when I would have gotten out. Now, apparently the Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, Dammam, and of course Muscat, Oman, which I flew out of, those airports have been operating normally, and so people are able to leave many of those places, but not the case in Doha, unfortunately. So all the best to those who are still stuck there and trying to get out. If you're still there, it really might be time to get out overland, go to Saudi Arabia. That is the closest option, and catch a flight from there. But I wanted to address this war in general, the U.S.-Israeli invasion, and share a few thoughts about it. So overall, I would say that this is a disaster that has the potential to be a much bigger disaster, and it really seems to be heading in that direction of just another quagmire that could go on for months, quite possibly years. Hopefully that is not the case. But I want to make clear that, as I said in my very first video that I filmed in Doha, once I realized that I was stuck there, then I said in that video, I do not like the Iranian regime. I really hope that they can be gotten rid of, and that the Iranian people can be free from that terrible government that has been there since 1979 and has been really bad for the Iranian people. It is quite possibly the biggest, certainly one of the biggest discrepancies between the people and a government in the world, as far as what the people really want and what they have been stuck with. As we have seen over the past number of years, especially with the massive protests, just hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of people out in the streets demonstrating, protesting, fighting back against their government, trying as best as they can to get rid of these guys, and they just cannot get rid of them. And it is just an absolute shame and a tragedy that the Iranian people, who, by all accounts, I haven't been to Iran, but having seen videos and talked to other travelers, the Iranian people just being some of the just warmest, most awesome, amazing, open-minded, open-hearted people in the world, and yet they're stuck with this very oppressive government. And so I support their fight, their revolution, whatever you want to call it, against the government, to get rid of them and get a government in there that is much more representative of the people and what they really want, which is not these restrictive, oppressive laws and culture norms and all this kind of stuff that is really holding them back from being able to be, you know, a free society, which they clearly want to be. But all that being said, I still do not support this invasion by the U.S. and Israel for a bunch of reasons. But the main reason is because of the disaster potential and the casualties, the loss of life, which could be catastrophic going forwards. The best example is the Iraq War. So I am 53 years old. I was a full-grown adult when the Iraq War happened, the whole ramp up to it, the lies that were told to justify it of weapons of mass destruction, which turned out to be false. So I just saw some stairs going up there. Let's go get a little bit even better view of the surrounding town and everything. Mahabalipuram, the sea right out there. So that war was an absolute disaster. Once again, Saddam Hussein, bad guy, but that war resulted in a civil war between the Shia and Sunni that dragged on for close to a decade, 2003 to I forget when exactly the war was considered to have been actually over and full authority handed back to the new Iraqi government, but 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, close to a decade, and more than 1 million Iraqi deaths, unknown, but of course many injured and maimed and everything, and a decade of just absolute horrendous disaster. I mean, that war was really bad. Was all that worth it just to get rid of Saddam Hussein? I would be inclined to say no. It's up to the Iraqi people ultimately to come to that determination, but we are now in a very similar situation in Iran, in which this could go on for certainly most likely months. Even the Trump administration is saying, well, this could go until September, but it is utterly and absolutely unknown. It could very seriously go on for years and result in many casualties of the Iranian people and also of American soldiers. They're putting the idea out there of potential boots on the ground, and then it gets really crazy. And so that is one reason. And also there is the potential chain reaction domino effects that can occur and are now occurring, which can result in just massive chaos and disruption throughout the region and far beyond that. Because of the economic implications, you have the oil factor, you have all of the other countries in the region which are caught up in this, that, as I experienced, are getting bombed by Iran because of the US military bases. So I was reading an article or watching a video, I forget, about one particular reality of this war, which is that Iran has tens of thousands of relatively cheap drones that can strike, which, in order to thwart that strike, then you need to intercept it with interceptor missiles. Apparently, when these attacks occur, a missile or drone attack, and it is intercepted by the interceptor missiles, there are generally 2 fired in order to make more certain that it is shot down. Those interceptor missiles cost like $5 million each, something like that. Whereas the drones cost about $25,000 bucks. And so they're dirt cheap, relatively speaking, compared to the missiles, and the stockpile of the United States, Israel, and these other countries of their interceptor missiles is far dwarfed by the stockpile of drones that Iran has. And so what this means is that Iran can continue the attacks with its missiles and drones and ultimately wear down the other countries that they are attacking, because as I discussed in a video and in my last video talking about how I could have gotten, arrested in Qatar for posting a video talking about the interceptor missiles potentially running out, but that absolutely is a real possibility, whether it takes a few days or a few weeks or whatever. Then there is, of course, limited amounts of those missiles. They are extremely expensive. And so Iran may very well be playing a waiting game, essentially, of sending out those missiles and drones, which are then shot down. But meanwhile, the countries that are being attacked by Iran are running down on their interceptor missile stockpile. And then Iran has this massive amount of drones waiting, ready to go, that can continue potentially long after the interceptor missiles are done, and then they are causing the real damage. So that is just one example of how this could drag on and could turn out to be much more disastrous for the United States and Israel and these other countries. Even if Iran is only targeting military bases of the U.S. in the region and not planning to go full scale, trying to bomb Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Doha and hit their hotels and malls and all that kind of stuff. But still, it can have devastating impact on the United States military bases and ultimately knock the U.S. out and result in, a U.S. loss, possibly. So once again, I don't know the full reality of that particular scenario, but that is one scenario to keep in mind that could ultimately come true. That is just one aspect of this. And then, as I said, you have the potential economic and just global political potential ramifications with Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz and Iran affecting the oil output and the general oil and gas situation and how that could have global impacts. There are all kinds of ways that this can get a lot worse and hit the entire globe in various ways that very well may not make it worth the U.S. invasion, which once again is based on lies, quite simply. The lie that Iran was a week away from getting a nuclear weapon, which they were then going to use to strike the United States. That is just completely, just utterly false. That is not based in any actual real evidence that that was going to happen. Either that they were that close to getting a nuclear weapon, or that if they had nuclear capability, that they were going to use it to strike the United States. So you need both of those to be true, yet neither of those are true. And then the other shifting rationale saying that, well, they were going to strike us, that's not known. Well, Israel was going to strike Iran, and so we needed to be proactive about striking Iran before Israel did, because if Israel struck Iran, then we were going to have to back up Israel, and so we'd be in the war anyways. That is one of the rationales. There's just been lots of different justifications kind of all over the map. Who knows what the real justification ultimately was? It is not exactly clear. But we shall see where this goes going forwards. My honest hope is that this wraps up soon. The Iranian government, as it is done away with. A new government is installed, even if the motivation is somewhat, U.S. centric, selfish reasons. Still, that could potentially result in a better government, at least for the Iranian people. That would certainly be the best case scenario at this time. But the way that things are looking, that is not going to transpire anytime soon. And what is much more likely is that this turns into a drawn-out, protracted quagmire situation that could go in many different, very bad directions. So we shall see, time will tell, but it is not looking good at this time. All right, time for me to get out of here and go show you Mahabalipuram. Back to the travel videos.